Hey everyone, Rizzo here, and today, to celebrate the 1 year anniversary of World War II season finale, I'm joined by two very special guests, former creative director on Call of Duty World War II and current narrative director over at BioWare, Cameron Dayton.
Hello, hello.
And I didn't actually catch your title. I know you did campaign stuff, Warnke.
I was a senior level designer technically, but I was lead designer on the Zombies DLC season from 1 to 4, which was it's a very complicated thing. So I'm sure someone will hear that and be like, "That's not true," but it's technically accurate as per Cameron's.
Yeah, I will verify that. And Jason provided much needed heart, soul, and cerebellum to the project that he was a part of there. So I think it's his definition for our purposes.
For those watching at home in about 11 days or whenever, this isn't going to be a, super cold, dry interview where nothing fun happens. Just guys talking about video games, having a good time.
At this point, this is reminiscing ancient past.
That's right.
Uncovering stones left in the depths of ice.
Well, that actually leads me to my next point. Thank you for that. Speaking of uncovering stones, because it is a public thing, we're not going to be, sharing company secrets or any big bombshells or anything. Maybe some trivia that people may not have known, of course, but nothing huge, nothing that'll get anybody in trouble, of course. And of course, speaking of that, none of us are affiliated with Sledgehammer Games, Activision, or all that jazz, correct?
That is 100% correct. We'll be speaking for ourselves as independently thinking geeks, and not for the companies we represented or do represent.
And we all have this unspoken bond. We all ended up loving the content that we made, which is why we're chatting.
Exactly.
It's it's so easy for people to make stuff and never look back. But man, I've played the Frozen Dawn after it was released. It's a great experience. I hope anyway. I feel that way. It's super fascinating too, because you listen to people, you make this content, you pour hours and hours and hours, 80 hours a week sometimes to get something finished and ready. And you only have so much time, physical human time, to create something, and almost so much innovation and so many resources to do something. And of course you release it and it's not perfect, and you probably know more than anybody else out there how imperfect it is. But it's still it's something, and we have to appreciate what it is as best we can, both as players and as makers. So it's fascinating.
Art through adversity, right?
Well, and it's important too to recognize all the factors that go into this as well. With every single of the expansions, we were really running against the clock, and we're running against some fan expectations and about dwindling resources and everything. And so it's funny to look at and say, well, yeah, I like you, Jason, I'm extra sensitive to the things that we didn't do and that we didn't finish. But man, I'm so proud of the team for putting together what did come out, and I really think, Jason, what you and the rest of the crew were able to accomplish in the short amount of time we had there is really something else.
We definitely pulled off a couple of those last second, hey, producer comes in the room and says, "This thing is shut down. We're done. Everyone go home. We gotta push this out the door." And me and a couple of the artists were like, "Well, we have this one more idea," and we shoved it in. And then afterwards said, "Hey, producer, what do you think?" And he just looked at me like, "Oh, come on, Jason." And it released, and it was part of the level. But it's there's a lot of passion that goes into these games, and it's we want to make the biggest game possible. But
and one of my favorite things about this final expansion is that we finally got to do a lot of the things that we've been trying to get done throughout the entire season. We've been pushing, we're in the Shadowed Throne, we had the melee weapons. We wanted to kind of take that to the next level. We wanted to introduce a brand new dangerous sort of hunter zombie that would work differently than before, and we were able to get that in. And really, for me, just on the creative side, it was fun to finally say, okay, we've been so closely following the rough historical accuracy of World War II. And although we've got zombies, we're being really careful to, this looks kind of like Berlin, and this looks like, we're not going too loopy. And to finally say, damn it, we are in the South Pole, we're in Antarctica, we've got an ancient civilization, and we can go crazy and finally just really open up on the fun and the fantastic for the franchise. And it was really nice to be able to just kind of open with both barrels and fire like that.
I gotta say, the art team did a really great job on Frozen Dawn. It's so out there, but at the same time, it does feel like a chapter in the same universe, which I think is something you brought up on Zombros before, is why most of the maps kind of look similar in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a big hat tip to Lawrence Mai, who is the art director of that project. Just did a fantastic job of kind of keeping the color palette and keeping everything so it felt like it was the same universe, so that when we had a giant vista across a subterranean Thulian icy lair, it still felt like it was part of that same universe in the Final Reich, in the Belgian village you wandered through. It all felt like it was part of that same thing, and not a complete switch of channels.
I also I'm not sure if the guys would want individual name drops, but Garza was quintessential to making that map what it is. Like, he really knocked a lot of that stuff, like the whole Zeppelin crash. That was a huge question mark because it was just. It's so hard. How do you make the interior of a Zeppelin look good on the exterior parts of the map? And he figured it out with it. He knew exactly what it would look like. It didn't even question. In his mind, it was already on the page. It was awesome. He's an amazing artist. He's over at 2K right now, doing some cool stuff.
Yeah, it really was a top-notch team that was able to, under some really frightening pressures, able to pull off solutions and fixes that made things even better than before it was broken, sort of thing. And that was the kind of creativity that I still stand in awe of a lot of the decisions that the team was able to make together.
Well, now that we're through gushing about how good the team did, under crunch and stuff like that, two things to note before we get into map specific.
Sure.
Before we get on to things proper, I'd just like to let everyone watching know that NDAs, contracts, and general professionalism towards former employers do exist. So if there's any question or topic I bring up that you two don't want to or can't talk about, just say pass and we'll move on.
Sounds good.
Alternatively, you could answer, and I'll just cut it out in post.
Yeah, no.
So I'm assuming we can't talk about that Army of the Dead concept teaser shown down in Mexico?
No.
Darn. Alright, let's start with the one question that is most likely to get passed on, except for the last one, but the rest are pretty tame. The mode is called Nazi Zombies, yet there's no depiction of the swastikas. What was up with that?
Oh boy. That was a really tough call. It was something that was made at the highest levels of the company, and it was a decision to avoid symbols that would cause issues with certain players, and the decision was made to strike that from multiplayer, the co-op, but it was kept in single player. There were a lot of back and forth about that, but that was something that had kind of been decided before I was on board with the company. So,
and for all those people wondering for so long, now you have your answer. Okay, that one was for them. The rest are for me.
All right.
I don't really have them super scripted out or anything. It's just conversation topics, because I know, Cameron, you're a huge fan of long answers, and I haven't talked to you enough, Warnke, to know if you're a huge fan of long answers, so I have a feeling you guys can do most of the heavy lifting.
If you put a couple developers in a room and just talk about games, we could probably do this for hours. So.
Oh, yeah. Or just Jason and I in a room, yeah.
One more that might actually be passed up on, Grossenhaus and the prologue. Are we allowed to talk about the story behind how the map's general layout and geometry came to be? Because I remember hearing about that, and I find that really interesting.
I think we can talk about that. I don't know. What do you think, Jason?
This is one of my favorite stories of development, and I'm not sure if it's really an inappropriate story, but, the long and the short of it was there wasn't a plan originally to have a prologue. It was, the Final Reich was the first level, and some specific guys were like, we have this idea, and we really want to try it. And they built it, not off the books. The company knew it was being developed, but they built it kind of quickly, scrappily, and proved how cool it would be. And it brought the thing down to, to show it off for the first time. Mm-hmm. That scare at the tree with that zombie and the shovel it actually got everyone. And that just proved that we were going to be able to make a zombies mode. So they basically made the whole mode happen. If it wasn't for those guys.
You know what? Jason, I was thinking that he was asking about the version of Grossenhaus before. There's all this geometry beyond the map that's out there, and I know that was from the previous plan on the map and everything else. But yes, as far as
Rizzo, is that what you're talking about? Is you talking about
what I remember? This is from our first conversation 18 months ago or something.
Uh-huh.
You're talking about how most of the geometry from Grossenhaus was actually from a cut campaign level, and that you just turned the lights off and added some blood and stuff, and boom, prologue level.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, so I was here for a lot of that part. Really, what we were pushing for is by introducing some new play styles and new mechanics. I wanted to do a tutorial level, and the storytelling is a lot easier if you can kind of break free from the round and waves construction of your average zombies map. And so I said, well, what if we did this little lead up to Groston House, where we have a little bit of the story, we have a little bit of you picking up your device from the Nazis that's going to be, and we talk you through how that works. We get a little bit of a scare in there because it's just so much easier to scare somebody when they're by themselves and they're not, running in circles or escaping zombies. And so I actually storyboarded out that first little bit and pitched to the team, and we just don't have the time. We don't have the resources to do this. And so this is where Jason's part of the story kicks in. Is a bunch of the designers kind of stayed late one night, and they took that building that's Groston House, which existed already. Jason, you can verify this or not because you were on the single player side for that, but they took this existing building and added some darkness and some blood and showed that, wow, you know what, the multiplayer or the rounds in this are actually a lot of fun. The co-op in this is a lot of fun. And so it was something that it was just through our own kind of zeal and attempt to get this through that we got the tutorial into the map. But it was originally not even a part of the plan because nobody thought we had the time to get it done.
And yeah, to your point, Rizzo, we won't really be able to talk about cut content, but one of the jokes in the team is that zombies mode revives a lot of assets.
That's something I actually really dig about World War II zombies in general, was how much asset reuse is there. Like, I know a lot of people, throw around lazy because they don't understand how development works, but hell, I don't really know that much either, but that was something I found, really charming about the original Zombies World at War, how it's just like a bunch of multiplayer maps, but you threw zombies in it. I thought that was really charming and really cool, but what was even better in this one is that it makes sense from canon. Grossenhaus went into multiplayer, and Middleburg was wiped off the map. Like, it's no longer there, because it takes place after Shadow Throne.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's fun to see, an area that you're very familiar with change.
Yeah.
That's always cool when a game will take a whole area that you set it at night, you set it with something that you're unfamiliar with, and it suddenly becomes different, even though it's the same geo. But sometimes it is just a cost cutting thing. You have to get something out quickly, and you want to make something, so you grab a bunch of assets, you repurpose them. It works both ways, honestly, and it's hard to really fault people for wanting to make more. I would rather make more with less new stuff than just make only new stuff, because only new stuff is very expensive, and you'll get a lot less of it than you would if you had 4 maps in a single DLC that all had assets that were reused from elsewhere in the game.
Which is probably one of the ways that Tortured Path even came to be.
Absolutely.
I noticed there's elements from a lot of the campaign missions in there, especially Into the Storm. There's parts from, I think, SOE in there, the foliage models, vistas, houses, stuff like that. Which
I'm nodding and smiling. Yes.
All right, so I did get that right. All right.
I can't confirm or deny. There may be, more or less.
If you're unsure, just say I cannot confirm nor deny. And that'll be my cue to move right along.
I will say pass. There you go.
There we go.
There we go.
Pass works. Next up, Army of the Final Reich. Everyone's seen the trailer. I can make that joke. None of you said it, so technically it's okay. All right, so probably biggest thing about Final Reich first is the notebook that teaches you how to go through the casual quest. Such a great addition, and why didn't that come back in the DLC maps?
You know what? We really liked it. It was a lot of work to put together, and whenever you get down to the bottom line of why certain things are in or out of a game, generally the answer is time ran short and something had to go. And I believe that was one of the things that had to go. Was either there's that or we don't have one of the zombies in there. So it was hard, and especially when you're putting out this very regular content with each of these DLCs. It's what a lot of developers don't ever learn how to do, which is sacrifice. You got to learn what to kill. You got to learn what's not getting out there. And unfortunately, that map, as great as it was, we kind of just had to make our peace with Well, this is your introduction to the Sledgehammer Games zombie experience. So hopefully everybody is on-roaded with that in the Final Reich, and hopefully can carry them through.
Another thing I really liked was you and I actually, I think you might remember, I was so nervous the first time I talked to you on Skype. I was like shaking, but I think the moment that I kind of loosened up is when we both started nerding out over the map's cinematic build-up and how cool like the Pest Reveal was.
Right.
That's where I think we both started to loosen up, because it's like, oh, we can both bond over how cool we think this stuff is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was a big part of what was important to us, is the giving every new zombie kind of an introduction, and how are you going to see these guys and what's that going to feel. And I just loved the buzzing of flies that came with the pests, and then you were like, well, yeah, let's have that, but then why not put them in a giant fiery eruption? You might as well just throw that in there as well. So
my good friend and lead designer on Zombies, Zach, was really instrumental in that explosion thing. He really wanted to like set up this whole kind of tense moment of hitting these valves. What do these valves do? You get that location, and if you knew about valves and if you knew about gas pipes and stuff, it would kind of probably make sense to you beforehand. But most people, I mean, especially me, when I first played it, just hitting that switch and seeing the explosion was like, oh, what the hell just happened? Falling back in your chair and see the zombies come out of it. I'm glad you enjoyed it, honestly, Rizzo. It's wonderful to hear things done well that people enjoy.
Yeah, that's going to be a theme going forward. I know that people love the Rizzo's a Sledgehammer show meme, and hell, I love it too. It's become part of my persona at this point. But all jokes aside, I really do love a lot about this game. I mean, that's why we're here right now.
May I interlude real quick for you, Rizzo?
Of course.
I don't want to forget telling you the story, and it's a perfect time now, as you described being nervous talking to Cameron. When I first met you, you came in for a press event for the Tortured Path, and that morning I got a text message from Brian Miggles, the community director, and he said, hey, I need you to talk to some guys coming in, some YouTubers coming in. And I was like, I'm just a developer. I just make maps for a living. I don't talk to people, right? I was so incredibly nervous that first time we were talking, like, who are these people? How are they going to judge me? How are they going to dress? And so I was standing up there and I started speaking, and I was like, I saw you in the crowd, and you were like, you had your hand, your chin in your hand, and you're like, huh, what is up with this guy? And I was like, oh, wait a minute, these guys just like games. That's great. I can talk to those guys. It was a very revealing moment.
That's a nice memory, Jason. I like you share.
I remember you were kind of surprised that I actually got who the bad agent was in Tortured Path.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That was great. Because I talked to a lot of press before, and sometimes they don't even know your game. They just want to get some buzzwords out there and stuff. But you guys actually like this stuff. You care, and it makes a lot of it justifies what we do a little bit, because we want to make great content for people who enjoy the content. And the fact that you actually got some of the subtleties that we were putting in was great. That was a very wonderful moment for me as a developer.
I'm going to be honest, I haven't told anyone this before, but I kept intentionally failing Chapter 1 over and over, like at the very last minute, just so I had an excuse to play more.
Oh yeah, because they'd kick you off as soon as you got to Chapter 2.
Yeah, about
right?
halfway through Chapter 2 or something. And it's like, well, if I don't get to Chapter 2, I could drag this out a little bit longer. But that was a great event. That was fun. Kind of sucks you couldn't have been there, Cameron, but oh well.
I've heard stories. I've heard great stories.
I remember a smart guy looked for fish spawns for like an hour and a half, and somebody had to come up, because he was actually, gaining a little bit of ground on the fish thing, and someone had to come over and say, okay, stop hunting for fish, and kind of pulled him away from it. This, again, might be a pass, but I gotta bring it up so that people don't, lynch me for not bringing it up. There used to be a certain tooltip, like one of those messages of the day, that mentioned double pack-a-punching. And as soon as people started noticing that message of the day, it was quickly pulled from the game. So what's the story behind multi-upgrading, if there is one?
It's one of those like really boring stories you probably wouldn't care to hear about, but sometimes people want to do things and they can't, or there are things on the books that aren't like budgeted for, and sometimes mistakes happen. It's any of those combinations, really.
So that was actually like a mistake that wasn't supposed to go in.
Yeah, I didn't actually answer the question, but I think you can assume what I mean.
Sorry, Jason, you're being way better than I am. For the record, go with Warnke's responses more. more than mine.
All right. Well, just to let you guys know, once I finish editing and all that, I'll send both of you like a screener copy unlisted on YouTube to review. So if there's anything you need cut out, just let me know. I'll probably have it uploaded in a couple of days.
Oh, Rizzo, you're
Okay.
so polite. You could have easily said, "Yeah, we're streaming to the internet right now,
Oh
Cameron."
God, no.
Also, just to be a little polite as well, you have an interesting following. It's your videos. I definitely enjoy the shitposty videos quite a bit. They're so weird, and it's good sometimes to just like look at watch something that sets your brain like a scrambled egg on a frying pan for a second.
That's kind of what I was going for. One day you might have something like that artsy fartsy Dark Wings video I made a couple months back that I was like, yeah, I was really proud of that. And then the next you'll have the God King trying to stop racism from existing in a 16-second clip. Like, that tonal whiplash doesn't sit well with most people.
It's honestly really indicative of the whole conversation, right? Zombies, even horror as a genre, is only applicable to like a small percentage of people who enjoy media. Like, there's a new movie coming out, an episode of the trailer for it, Parasite. I am so excited for that movie. That looks so good, and most people in my circle of friends, they don't care because it's a weird horror movie. I wish that zombies had a bigger following, and the following is so incredibly diehard. So you've kind of cultivated what essentially Call of Duty cultivates with their zombies mode. You've found some people who really enjoy this one particular subset of media, this like cognitive dissonance media or something. Like, I wish you could give it a title because it's kind of
I think you just did
unique.
actually.
Oh, well, there you go.
Cognitive dissonance media. There we go.
It's a fancy way of saying tonal whiplash.
Yeah. Well, keep it up. I enjoy it.
All right. What else we got here? Oh, yeah. This is something that was actually for me. I was digging around in the map file, for Final Reich.
Shame on you.
Something I noticed while I was, getting references on how to line things up in the scene. You know those objective panels that hide the Uberschnells for the Tesla guns?
Sure.
There's one in the square right above where you turn on the generator for the bunker. What's that all about? Like, was that like a cut Easter egg, or is there something more to that?
I have a question for you, Rizzo.
Shoot.
If we were to tell you an answer, and it revealed something that you might have had enjoyment finding yourself, would you want to know? Would you want the community to know that there's something that they could have found themselves that you just ruined right now by asking directly?
Wow, you really got to just make me the bad guy, huh? But yes, I'm terrible at finding Easter eggs.
I'm going to have to pass on this one.
Darn.
Yeah.
So, audience, take that how you will.
The funny thing is, no matter how we answer, whether we give you a strong, enthusiastic yes or a dangerous no, people are going to now circle around and look for that anyway. So there's really no way out of it.
Oh yeah, you guys are screwed regardless. There's no way to win.
Yeah.
The question is, have you been recording the Morse code in my blinking right now? That's the real question.
That's the other Jason. One last thing I want to talk about with the launch content for Final Reich is the special characters that you can unlock. I saw these challenges come up. I'm like, what are these for? Are these just like a thing you can go look back on? Like, oh, look at my accolades. No, they actually did something. Was that something that was planned a long time ago, or you just had some assets? I know there's obviously unique ones, but was that just we have time, let's throw this in kind of thing?
Really, a lot of this came down to, I wanted to make sure that there were special, fun, cool rewards that you could get for going through and having your special achievements and uncovering things. And we just had a lot of bandwidth with these extra characters. And it was one of these things where, wow, we've actually got enough where we can kind of crank out some of these really interesting ideas. For me, it was another chance at doing world building, saying, well, yeah, here are some more of the characters. We can give them some new voices, new things to say. And so it was just like a lot of our answers to your questions here, man. It was a case of opportunity meeting creativity, and meeting a case where, oh, wow, we can actually slip this in and have it out on time.
And and to add on to that too, which is a very good answer. When you think about zombies and what zombies is, it's about the exploration. It's about figuring and uncovering secrets, right? So having more and being rewarded even further outside the game for doing those things, that's like the dream. We just wanted to really embody what made zombies great with additional rewards.
Yeah.
I should also clarify, I wasn't there for that decision making, but I understood the reasoning for it and was very appreciative of the systems in place for it.
Yeah, well, I love having artifacts that you can carry that show how much you've been playing a game, what you've done in a game. And since we couldn't really show them on your character, we couldn't say, oh, well, here's a new badge you got, or here's a new hat you got. We had the little doodads you can put on your guns, but I was like, what about the characters themselves? You know, they all follow the same animation. Really, what we had just some extra talented hands at was just the character creators themselves. It just ended up being an interesting way of showcasing somebody's true expertise in the game.
And you can't really answer that question without also saying Cameron had a lot of fun writing those characters.
Very, very true. You know, I'm a big believer in characters giving life to a game. And so, I mean, the more characters we were able to throw in, the game just had all of a sudden lots more shiny facets.
It increased the scale of the game without, like, actually really adding much to it. Like, world building, like you said. It made people interested, like, what's this BAT thing? And which we did get to learn later on.
And that was a lot of fun, is the breadcrumbing and storytelling that was through there, and the building of suspense. I remember talking about this with you, Jason. A lot of it feels like you're up on a stage and you're kind of getting a read of the audience and getting a sense for what are they really biting at. You know, I had my notes from Drawston and these other elements, and we could literally just read the Twitter replies to that and be like, you know, people are loving, they're eating up this stuff. And they're not so, we thought they'd be gung-ho over this other idea, but not so much. So we could actually tune our storytelling, and we made decisions on different characters that were coming out, depending on where it was obvious that the fans' attention was going. There was definitely a lot of interest in the Bureau, and there was interest in, like, what are they doing elsewhere? And there were some really good questions. You know, it's not like we were entirely just going off of analytics there. A lot of it was, well, cool, that's a part of the story that we really do want to explore. I've always had a pet peeve where games make it seem like all the most important things in the world happen around three major characters, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of expanding our cast, that was one of my favorite parts of The Tortured Path, is we got to show other branches of the army and how they played a part. And then we got to bring it all back home with Intrepid Heroes at the very end of that, showing that this really was a worldwide effort, which kind of echoed really what World War II felt like. You know, it was such a big effort. It was such a combination of nations and cultures and peoples, and any one story following people is inevitably going to miss some important stuff. So it was nice to get, you know, in our own kind of funny, tongue-in-cheek way, a little bit of that international flavor.
I swear that you and me just operate on the exact same wavelength, because I agree with everything you just said.
You poor bastard. But that was a lot of the doing, and it allowed us to check some boxes with some interesting characters and answer some questions and bring in certain elements. And my favorite was going up and talking with the single player crew and saying, hey, are there any of those characters that you've got that we could actually cross over in here and really blur the lines between the more historic reenactment of single player and what we're doing over here? It was a scary thing to consider, but in the end, I think it was a lot of fun that we were able to share those corners of the universe.
I also especially enjoyed that since I worked on campaign from the beginning of World War II, and it was rolling off of, you know, the main campaign, finishing that, putting it out the door, and then like rolling on to zombies, and suddenly getting to have conversations about bringing Vivian over, you know, those kind of characters was really exciting.
And Jason was integral in doing a lot of that and being kind of a window into what can we bring over, you know, and what is what's going to fit, because Jason's got a great ear for story, you know, and so we kind of wanted to know, is this somebody that we're sure is not going to popping up anywhere else, safely, you know, tucked down into Thule.
Knowing that we were going to have this conversation, I wanted to go to the internet and confirm that certain things were public on the internet before I blurted out something that would reveal something. When I found out that I was moving on to zombies, actually, I worked really closely with a couple of the guys working on zombies to get some assets. And there's this part in Normandy where we got some zombies assets in, and it's it was really enjoyable to get that little Easter egg all over. I mean, like, Easter eggs are some of my favorite things to put in video games. It's basically what an Easter egg is saying. We've made this game. We love this game so much. We're gonna put a little bit more stuff in it that maybe the primary players don't see. Zombies players, of course, see, because that's the game, right? We just want that world to be as big and as deep as possible. it was a very interesting. I mean, sorry, I know we're talking about zombies, but I just want to leave this one little note. Working on the World War II campaign was probably the most fascinating experience of my career. Working on this historical accuracy, but also trying to make it bombastic and fun. It's like you can really run the risk of being insensitive, but I feel like we did a really good job representing the horrors of war as well as making a fun and first-person shooter experience. And I hope at least, if there were 15 people out there who played that game and both had an enjoyable experience but learned a little bit about World War II, then I feel justified in my 3 years on that game.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, Jason. I think even the quote unquote silly or monstrous things that we had happening there were all based on directions and thoughts and philosophies that truly were held by people at this point, and we tried to stay true to that. I think that the best stories are the that don't shy away from both the good and the evil that people can commit.
All right, now that the conversation's heavy, what do you got for us?
Yeah, let's go back to silly zombies. Well, Darkest Shore, probably the most controversial map. No, Torture Path exists. Never mind. The second most controversial map of the season. Personally, one of my favorites. I've gotten a lot of shit for that, but I love the lore behind it. How it's still manages to be spooky, but in a different way from Final Reich. Because those moistlets in the fog. It's been almost 2 years. I still don't like them. They still skeeve me out.
What's your least favorite part of that map? I want to know. I want to know what your
Darkest
least
Shore?
favorite part is. Oh yeah.
All right. This is the part where I get to prove I'm not a Sledgehammer show by actually criticizing something.
And I'm asking because I want to know if I built it or
not. I'm not a fan of the escort missions on the pagan side of the quest, like the Wussling, the Pest, and what was the other one? There was a third escort. No, actually, I like the Moishla one. That one's fun. Like playing hide and seek in the fog with the Moishla. That one's good.
Yep.
And I hope I'm pronouncing it right.
You're good. Sweet.
Well, as it turns out, yes, I was involved in those.
Darn.
Lovely aspects. Oh, that's good.
I love them from like a story standpoint of finding Nerthus's anointed and sacrificing them. I think that's great. It's just when you have like a dozen bombers and Wusslings like crowding around this little pest, and you're almost never well equipped enough to handle it. You're like, God damn it, game, give me a chance.
I think.
Are you trying to say you want zombies to be easy? God.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. I always smile when people say I hate this game because this character or this element that was supposed to be challenging is so damn challenging. I'm like, okay, well, you're angry for the right reasons in that it was supposed to inspire frustration, but eventually with enough hard work you can get like that's what a good game does.
Oh, no, I meant the solo balancing.
Yeah.
We're not going to defend that hill. That's
something World War II got a lot of shit for. I agree with it in certain aspects, but at the same time, I can understand, like, Cameron, I believe you said that the Zombies team was, like, the smallest of the 3 studios?
Oh, yeah.
That baffles my mind, because there's so much in that game. It's like, there's a few things they messed up on, but I understand how. Like, it would take so long to balance a quest for solo play and co-op, which I think Final Reich did pretty well, but, that had, 2-3 years in development?
Yeah.
Whereas, like, Darkest Shore had 8-9 months maximum.
Oh, I would. I would.
Less.
I would say less. Yeah, much less.
I remember Smart Guy was watching some stream and like I said Frozen Dawn was going to have some major tweaks to solo play, and I spent like a couple weeks personally trying to do some tweaks, and we put a lot of niceties in for the Frozen Dawn. Sorry, it's hard, man. It's really hard to make those fun and challenging and not mess. Like you don't want to run the risk of making a solo experience easier than the multiplayer experience, so people just do it solo, and then you're kind of implying people to do solo play in a multiplayer co-op game. But at the same time, you don't want it to be punishing. And I was playing Alpha Protocol, and I was playing that, and I'm trying to do the valves solo, and I'm like hitting the valve for a second, running a giant circle, hitting the valve for a second. I'm like, as a designer, like, how would I do that differently? Like, the only thing you could do is like pause the zombies, but that's stupid because you need that to You need the game to work as it says it works. You need those rules to be in place. They're there for a reason.
I think he did a pretty good job with the Frozen Dawn solo. I think the only thing that still bugs me is the dreaded part of going online to like the puzzle solver for the pillars.
Just talking about the pillars and talking about the I know we're jumping around now, and you had this whole like process for all the different maps, but like the
I figured this would happen. It's fine. No worries, man.
the statue puzzle in DLC 2, right? Well, a friend of mine made that, and he was like super proud of it, and he enjoyed it. The moment that he saw someone made a puzzle solver for his puzzle, it's like the most gratifying. No, seriously, it's gratifying.
He loved it.
Yeah, we made a puzzle that people enjoyed enough and want to beat enough that they've made a solver for it, so that people have could either try it themselves or no. It's gratifying.
Well,
I mean,
Jason, do you remember? Do you remember what he did? He'd actually, using paper cups, had created that puzzle by paper cups that you could place on other cups and twist them around with the symbols. Like, he had a full working model of exactly how that puzzle worked. That was so game making right there.
Okay, this is something, I don't know if you'll have an answer to this one, but I remember I asked you like a year ago and I didn't get like a real answer about it. The moishla textures. In a map where the corpse gate exists and it's full uncensored glory, why do the moishlets have censored textures in all versions of the game?
Oh man, that gets into some really specifics. I
know, that's why I figured you wouldn't have an answer for it, but I just had to ask it. It's been bugging me for almost a year and a half.
Yeah, like that. There's like one person on the team could probably answer that question. I don't know, Jason. Do you have any insights?
This definitely like treads the ground of like it might be inappropriate to answer it, so I gotta pass. I might not even know the right answer, but I don't even want to hazard a guess because that runs a risk. So I'll pass.
If there's any risk, just pass. It's totally fine, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, speaking of the corpse gate, how in the hell did you get the green light on that thing?
Glenn Schofield came down and we were talking, and we put together a little kind of animatic short guy in the part, and he was just so gung-ho over this that it was quickly just became kind of one of the highlights that was going on, and again, it was very much a horror bit. It was surprising how quickly that sailed through.
And talking about Glenn specifically, like I loved Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2. Those are amazing games and will always be in my lexicon of games. And so working with Glenn was really an enjoyable experience. And it was kind of bizarre sometimes, just talking to him about what he wants to make. And you're like, you want to make that? We can do that?
Yeah. No, Glenn is very much a connoisseur of horror. A lot of what happened with our game was very much trying to meet in the middle on, because horror is best told in a single player experience, I believe, where you've got a little more control over your audience, you're seeing where they're going. And so the huge challenge, of course, in zombies is you're not controlling the player. They get to go back over and retread space over and over again. And this is something we learned the hard lesson on, is even the best jump scare in the world gets old after 3 times. So it was really picking those really highlight moments. And that's where it was really brilliant having Glenn on board, because he has such a great eye and a great feel for this right here is just going to.
Speaking of jump scares, there's one I actually just recently the other day found on Dark Ashore that scared the bejesus out of me. Actually, I went up to the artillery bunker during a fog round, and there was just a random zombie corpse laying up there. Being the weird pseudo techie that I am, I'm like, that I haven't been up here in 3 rounds. That body should have despawned. And as soon as I started pondering that, he fucking jumps up at me. I didn't know that those were in the game. I saw the animations a year ago in the files. I'm like, okay, they cut that. No, he just it's still in the game. It's super, super specific when it activates.
It's interesting. You got to experience something that no other player gets to experience, which is a sense of expectation. Most people wouldn't even think about it, but you kind of knew about it, which you shouldn't have, by the way, but you did. So when you when you saw the thing and it happened, your brain exploded in a different way than most people's brains would explode. But it's kind of an interesting story. Thank you for sharing.
We can fight all day long about, hey, you shouldn't be seeing those assets, kid. And it's like, what?
I mean, it's kind of an interesting point of conversation, because you download a thing and you have it on your computer, and as a developer, I'm like, wait, don't look. You're looking behind the curtain. There's actually interesting
Pay no attention
stuff.
to the man behind the curtain. Yeah, you're kind of getting into the show, but that is I mean, that is a part of modern audiences now, isn't it, Jason? I mean, they want to be participants and co-developers with you, and that has both wonderful and frustrating tendencies.
It's definitely frustrating, like as a developer, when you put a whole bunch of effort into something and then some text file gets leaked and a whole bunch of your names are out there, and you're just like, but the community having like the Easter egg hunt, that's the best part.
Like the character challenges that were leaked before Darker Shore came out, and then were swiftly changed.
Well, that's a different story, but yes.
I really want to. I wanted to credit Zach, because Zach was the one who found Heligoland. I remember reading about Heligoland and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is perfect! This is the perfect place to tell our story." And it's amazing, like finding a great story for where we wanted to go made everything fall into place. But it was miraculous that DLC was even done in time. That's right. Okay, so I think we're probably good on this.
Probably not.
Oh, really?
Because I remember this. You were talking about
Well, no. To make.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to cut almost all that out.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be really funny if I had like 2 solid minutes of silence and then just said I'd have to cut that out. That'd be really funny and not annoying at all.
Actually. You could, even if you wanted to, do like static where you get a syllable or two here and there, and then sorry, we're gonna have to cut this.
I didn't even think of doing that. I'm gonna do that now.
I do find it's really fun to I listen to while working or taking a walk or driving, from my commute to work and stuff. It's really fun to listen to YouTube. I have a YouTube Red account and stuff, and I listen to a lot of YouTube people just talk about stuff. I've been listening to this YouTube channel. I'm gonna promote another channel on your channel. God, this channel, Bedtime Stories. Have you heard this one?
I have not.
He talks about real life examples of horror that happen to people, and one of my favorite things about the channel is that he talks about the real life situations that may occur to cause these kind of mythical horror stories, and at the same time those horror stories are actually fantastic. But like Heligoland was a great example of this. You get inspiration from real stories, and those real stories become better because there's history to them. And the Nerthus stuff, like, I was so much fun to work on that because she's a real caricature in the world, and it ties together in a way that might inspire some horror in somebody who knows about that character. And so even saying the word Nerthus, is that a terrifying thing? Do people recognize it? It's really cool, and I recommend that channel. You should listen to it.
All right, I'll have to give it a shot then. And to be honest, I'm so glad that things found a place the way they did with that map. All the lore with Nerthus and the sacrifices and the monk. Oh, it's so good.
Just kind of doing a retrospective, Cameron and I were probably watching YouTube videos until like 4 or 5 a.m. while people were trying to solve the maps and stuff. And when
testing each other and excitedly and
like, they found the thing. Look at that, it's amazing.
And then the whistle got stuck.
Oh God, don't remind me. Yep, that was painful to watch, especially since I was part of the team making the code for that, and we were like, yeah, it's totally good, and then it wasn't good, and it's always a disheartening thing. It's like we want this to be perfect. It's close, and then something messes up, and bugs happen, but like you can't really make an excuse. You want to release a perfect product. But what I was going to say is, listening to Waffles talk about the head when he found the head, I placed the head, and so like I was watching his screen, and he found it. He pressed the button to reload, and it picked it up, and he didn't realize what had happened. I was just so like, it was right there, man. You found it. Look at your screen. Yeah. Those moments are really enjoyable as a developer, because while you guys are enjoying playing the game, we're enjoying seeing the things that we did give you guys enjoyment as well. Which sounded like a Christmas special right there, but you know what I mean. It's it's gratifying.
Sometimes life is a Christmas special. Yeah.
Sometimes.
I don't have too much for Shadow Throne, but I actually wanted to get a little bit more clarification on this, if you could. More than 280 characters on Twitter.com. Zeppelin's survival map was considered at one point. I'm assuming that was just not happening was a result of time constraints.
Let me just say, like, I'll say this one thing. There were a lot of maps that we wanted to make that we just didn't have time to make.
Yeah.
Yep.
A
lot of things in expansion.
There are some experiences, some Easter eggs that I wish that I could have done that I'm going to try in the future to somehow convince someone at Activision to let me do anyway. Someday, maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, good luck with that. One little thing right off the bat I really loved was a Hangman Easter egg. Besides the fact that, it just gives you an excuse to get more cool wonder weapons, it also can really help with, like, speedrun attempts and stuff like that. Like, if you need Jack-in-the-Boxes for the Stardigger fight in solo, which you probably do, instead of hitting the box for an hour, you can just type the Jack box into the thing, and boom, there you go.
The designer who made that one was, like, he's one of the best designers I know. He's a junior. He's, like, this is his first job, and he's making these really cool experiences. I'm sure he's going to do really great things in the future. You don't have much to say about the Shadow of the Throne, huh? Well, why not? What's keeping you from expressing questions? Or
I kind of just forgot.
Gotcha.
I wrote some things down, and at the same time, I started writing things down for Attack of the Undead, and I got totally sidetracked.
I'm going to preface this statement with, this is absolutely not true, but it's still kind of funny. But we, when the DLC 1 map was close to finishing, this dude on YouTube, I can't remember who it was, said that he would eat an entire Harry Potter novel if we didn't kill Straub in DLC 2. Sorry, if Straub didn't stay dead in DLC 2, he would eat an entire Harry Potter novel, and we're like, should we bring him back just to see that video?
So he appears in Chapter 2 as a hallucination. Does that count, technically?
He didn't need it, so he didn't believe so, at the very least.
That would have been a video, for certain. I don't know what kind it would have been, or what emotions it would elicit, but it would have been something.
It's a little bit of Schadenfreude. I mean, like, watching someone eat an entire book like that, that's not healthy.
No.
It'd be amusing at first, and then you start getting concerned.
Wait, please stop.
The Stardigger fight. I was really kind of iffy on it when I first started playing the map, but then, play things more, and you see him from a different light, and you're like, oh, that's... And something I've actually found out recently, one of you is going to be like, oh, God damn it, Rizzo. Someone made a trainer recently for the PC build of World War II that allows, like, God mode, no clip, all that good stuff. And something I noticed is that fight still continues, even if you, like, teleport out of the Zeppelin and then teleport the zombies to you. That fight still functions 100%. So recently I've been, like, fighting the Stadjäger in the museum, and it's so cool. It's such a good fight.
That's
Anywhere
interesting.
you put it.
What's your question?
I just
wanted to say it.
I kind of just
what?
wanted to gush on how
I've
cool
gotta-
that fight is.
I've got to say that's really a credit to the combat designers and the boss designers that work there, because the one nice thing about creating the Zeppelin is, okay, we've got a space here where there aren't places where things can pop in and out. Like the world of testing an FPS, with AI in it that, has a unique walk and run cycle. It's a nightmare. So we're like, okay, the little space for the boss fight, because we know the limitations of this Zeppelin. That's funny. I wonder, Jason, if they ever actually did try letting him loose down in the city. I'm sure that we were way too scared to make that boss fight happen there, but I wonder if anybody right now would be cursing and shaking their fist at the sky like, oh, we could have made him fight against the city.
I mean, exactly what Cameron said. It's a credit to the stability and of the code that they made. I mean, that code was really good. That character was really well developed. Let me tell you, though, you could not fight the God King down there in the streets of Germany.
Side story, I tried that with Warnke. I tried getting him into different parts, like the spawn area, because like, oh, that'll make a great shot to have him like charging up his power with the burning Zeppelin in the back. I thought that would be great, but he snaps back to his locations constantly.
He really loves his throne. That's all we can say. I need to go AFK for 1 second. I'll be right back.
All right.
Please continue without me. I'll be back.
But I gotta say, Shadow Throne really turned out to be, I think it is one of the fun of our maps to play through. There were some great scare moments in there, and really some interesting storytelling. A lot of interesting bits like that. And I now, so far after the fact of the release, I still see a lot of people referring to as one of their favorites the season.
Those melee weapons are so much fun. The cool little vignettes with the soldiers fighting zombies in the streets. The unique design of like how doors work in that map. They're just drop pods you open.
And that was a really interesting challenge, is how could we make that not completely obvious that these are our doors here? A lot of it was about the placement, angling them. We're like, oh, it was so perfect in both Final Reich and on the Straub's little island, that of course they'd have those same sort of doors opening and closing. But if we're going to be in Berlin, how can we make it so that the Geistkraft is still your way of getting from place to place without making it seem too heavy-handed. And I think we were able to pull it off. I'm actually really proud of the design team and how they made that still feel like it had a natural.
Yeah, it feels organic. Just wish I had more to say about Shadow of the Throne, because it's one of my favorites of the season, but at the same time, I'm dumb and got sidetracked by Attack of the Undead.
Nothing wrong with that.
All right, what are we talking about?
How unprofessional I am by not actually getting a good set of questions and stuff for Shadow of the Throne. So, Attack of the Undead. It's technically not a zombies map, I know, but I just want to dive into it a little bit, because it ties into the story a little bit. Like, it shows Straub's Reich spreading across Europe without actually having to dedicate an entire map to that, which I thought was pretty great. Horde Point, one of the greatest modes ever. I'll fight people on that. Grossen House was a multiplayer map. And a few other things came with that event. The Blitz, when you put your hand on the machine, and the animation timer, that was changed significantly, which everyone was asking for, and I'm so glad it happened.
We were looking for the excuse to do that a long time.
My favorite thing about that entire event was that, I guess around that time, someone in the studio heard my bitching and moaning on Twitter and gave Olivia's NPC model her scarf back.
Yeah.
I remember the day that event came out, someone DM'd me on Twitter. It's like, dude, they added a scarf. Like, no fucking way. And then I was like, oh my god, they did. I know that means like nothing to anybody else, but I thought that was great. I love when my incessant bitching and moaning about things that don't matter actually changes something.
Well, yeah, that's why I actually like listening. That's why Jason and I were on YouTube, is it really does matter. And a lot of times when you guys will catch stuff, we're like, oh, damn, how did we miss that? We got to get that back on. And so that's the part where really, considering our players as co-developers is a lot of fun, because we all want this to be the best possible game, the best possible product we can make it. And when complaints are listed as things like, oh man, this would be so perfect if we had this, I think the best developers will nod and say, dude, you're totally right,
And I remember about the little cosmetic change. Marie got her Electro Snow back in DLC 4. And that was the first thing I noticed in the shot in that trailer when it pans down to show all the heroes. I'm like, wait a fucking second, did I just see that? What was even worse though is in DLC 3, the joint was on her model for the the mesh, but the model itself wasn't there. I'm like, you motherfuckers.
We just put it in there. It said, John Rizzo, look at this spot right here. There should be something here. I feel like Treyarch is kind of already doing this, but at certain points, some developers who have people who care enough to hack into their information are going to leave little love notes for their fan base. You shouldn't be here, but now that you are, enjoy some information or whatever.
Exactly.
I remember you saying Warnke had a heavy hand in Torture Path and Frozen Dawn, correct?
Oh yeah. To either my benefit or my detriment, I very much pushed for the gameplay changes in the Torture Path. I know it's very controversial, and I know some people really hated it and some people really loved it. Personally, I thought it was a very interesting take on the zombies experience, and I really enjoyed what we made.
I mean, there are certainly a lot of things that I know Jason and I could probably just chat about what it was like to be in a mode where there are a lot of very strong feelings and kind of traditional thought, and the freedom we felt to experiment. I know that was something Jason and I talked about a lot. Was I remember it was an argument, the initial idea of getting rid of the boarding up the windows. Wow, this is a beloved thing. This is something that both Treyarch and Infinity Ward have done, and it's an expectation. And I kind of came at it from I'm like, well, narratively, with what we're doing with the energy that's being released from the zombies and being able to store that, it doesn't make sense at all why boarding up windows would give you some of that. And I remember from the game side of things, there was talk from both Zach and Jason. I think you said something about this as well. Like it also slows down a game that, we're really trying to focus on the running part of this game, the constantly moving sort of thing. When the game came out, we very much held our breath to see what people would say, because there really is a resistance to change in a lot of this. And I think we kind of got so comfortable with it that by the time DLC 3 rolled around, we're like, screw it, let's go crazy. Let's really see. I think we've earned our badges as zombie developers with the first game and the DLCs that followed. I'm like, let's use this one to really have a lot of fun, and then for DLC 4 we'll circle the wagons again around a little more traditional gameplay.
You know, you just open yourself up to some smartass in the comments saying, "No, you didn't."
I mean, it's kind of like
Sure.
really interesting from a design perspective, from a game design perspective. It's really interesting to have a game design team who like looks at everything fundamentally and says what is important. And you'll of course have people on both sides of every conversation, fans saying yes it is or no it's not. But at a core is the game fun with or without this thing? Again, I wasn't part of the the Final Reich. I started midway through the Darkest Shore on DLC, but listening to Zach and like going over to those, just having fun chats with those guys about things like, what if we didn't have pat machines? And obviously that's a bad idea. But we had those conversations, right? It's like, what would make the game different and more fun? Would removing this element make the game better? Yes or no? And so we're trying a whole bunch of stuff. And there's a really funny story about when the Zelda Breath of the Wild guys were developing their game. They did the same thing. They took like, what makes Zelda great? What are the things that should be different? And so they literally changed. They went and took everything in Zelda and made it different and said, like, playtesters, what do you think? And one of those things that they did was they made exploding barrels green. And so one of the playtesters said, like, why weren't you destroying barrels? There's exploding barrels all over the place. And the playtester said, what exploding barrels? And it's like, the green ones. It's like, exploding barrels are red. They just are. So there's some expectations you can't fight with. But, even like Treyarch Zombies doesn't always have boards on their windows. It's just one of those things. It kind of comes and goes.
And personally, I think it's important to have those kind of conversations. Like, in hindsight, it probably wouldn't have been the best idea to remove Pack-a-Punch. But it's important, I think, to have that conversation, to be like, what can we do differently while at the same time retaining the core of what makes it fun?
And you know what? You wouldn't remove Pack-a-Punch. It's the same reason why buying Magic the Gathering cards is fun. You don't want to, like, remove the opening the pack feeling. Like, you put a weapon down, you pick it back up again. Like, what's different? What is this thing doing now? Making Pack-a-Punch weapons is probably one of the most fun things I did on all of Call of Duty.
Speaking of which, you were talking to me the other day about the new batch of weapons that just came out with, like, the Hide and the Bekovic and stuff like that. You said that was, like, your last thing you worked on at Sledgehammer, correct?
Yeah, up to the last day, that was the last thing I was doing. I was making some of those weapons or some of the variations. They changed a little bit after I left, of course, but there was some fun stuff. I don't know if you remember Jay Angardia, but he was like a mega fan before working on Zombies. And he and I worked together on those last set of weapons, and then I moved out and went to this really cool new venture, which you should check out. Ascendant Studios. We're gonna make something cool, I promise, someday. But yeah.
We'd already done some very classic Zombies modes. We're very much towed the line with what was expected. And it felt like for DLC 3, we're like, this is our chance where we can kind of flex our muscles a little. What are some ways where we could make the games go a little more quickly? Because there's a certain population that drops out of these games if they go too long and if nothing's happened.
I think it was really interesting also seeing the numbers of players who played that stuff. We get to see some pretty behind closed doors information on player counts and player games and all that stuff. Like I think people really like that mode, and it's there's definitely some hate out there, but like it was interesting. It also lined up really well with some stuff going on MP, and we had the cross promotional stuff, and like we saw a lot more zombies in that DLC 3 than we expected, which was really cool.
Yes.
Oh, I've actually been meaning to ask this for a while. The Sword of Barbarossa, the assets are loaded into the survival maps.
You guys added me and Cameron on Twitter.
I did. I was very curious about that. Like,
no one responded, so I'm just gonna probably interrupt you now and say pass.
Damn it.
I was doing some digging. Like I was. It's interesting when someone asks that kind of question. I have to go Google like what do people know and what do people not know, so that I don't spoil something for people, or as I'm well known to give some hints and stuff here and there. But there's not much information. There's nothing for me to help along. So I got nothing for you.
Darn. I remember around the time Frozen Dawn was releasing, I posted my thumbnail renders I was using, and you actually contacted me on Twitter. It's like, hey man, this looks good, but here's something that can make it even look better. And you like walked me through the process of like making sure to brighten up Vivian's eye because it was very dark. And
oh yeah,
gave her a weird look on her face, and the what was it? Catch lights in the eye? Is that what they're called?
Shoot, I'm actually blanking on the name as well, but it's like spotlights. It's
yeah, spotlights in the eye, and immediately I was like, holy shit, that looks so much better.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to use those tips going forward.
I'm definitely not a professional artist. There's definitely people out there who have a lot more talent and knowledge than I do, but I really want people to excel at what they want to make. And again, I know a lot of people who have asked me like, how do you become a developer? And the first thing I say, especially specifically a designer, how do you become a designer? Because it's a big prestigious concept of what a designer is. And the first thing I say is learn something else. Go become a psychologist. Go learn like architecture. Go learn how to write a book. Those skills will make you a better designer. And then of course you have to know about how gameplay works, and have to know some technical skills or some artistic skills and stuff. But no, those are vital skills for doing any kind of content creation. So no, I'm very happy to have helped you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Actually, I want to talk to you a little bit about this for Frozen
Sure.
Dawn. How about that flamethrower exploit?
Oh man. Oh god. Yeah.
I remember Cameron was telling me about like your heart just sank when you saw that.
A little bit. I know people were working on a normal playthrough, and then that happened, and it was like, ah. But mistakes happen.
The epilogue with the God King, where he said, "This is not the end."
Uh-huh.
It shows that you guys probably had some inklings of an idea of where to go next, where you to stay on the project.
Yeah.
Can
And
I get anything
think-
on that, or?
Well, I think we can safely say that this wasn't a specific direction, but we wanted to end with a note that says if it was ever decided to continue down this path, we wanted to leave that open. We'd spent so much time building this world that we loved that was really exciting, and it ended on a note where it was undead legions, marching across the world, and our own kind of specialized heroes fighting against that. We wanted to make sure that we made clear this was not a book closing, and this wasn't based on anything more than just, we were in love with that story and in love with that universe.
This is something, actually, Cameron, you told me a long time ago.
Uh-huh.
You told me that it was intentional that you couldn't find Vivian's body after the God King IGC.
Uh-huh.
What was that about?
Actually, a very similar reason to the one I just gave you. I like having some mystery there. There's something nice about having a story when you have somebody who is playing an important part, and especially is walking that line between living and undead. And if you read her journals, there's this almost a possession by the God King, and that's a fascinating story. And so I'm not saying one thing or another happened to her, but damn, it would be interesting to tell more of.
Yeah, what he said.
Oh, actually, I only have like 2 more rapid-fire questions left, and that's about it.
Cool.
Can the Tesla gun or the Ripsaw from Shadow Throne's Hangman Easter egg be upgraded?
I will pass.
Damn it. I told one of my friends that this chat was going to happen eventually, and he insisted that I ask this one. Does the Witch
Sure.
Warden actually have unique translatable dialogue, or is it all just reused zombie foxes?
I mean, you've heard Cameron talk about this kind of at length about the zombie dialect and dialogue. There's something there, but that's all I can say.
That's all
Keep
I
trying.
expected.
Keep at it. Good luck.
Yeah, he just wanted to know that if the Witch Warden was actually saying something, or if it's just mumbo jumbo. So
There's
there you go,
something.
Sam. That one's for you. Yeah, that's everything. That's all I could think of. It's great talking with you guys, man.
Likewise, it's great to kind of reminisce. It's fun, and again, for all those people out there who do enjoy zombies, especially World War II zombies, I'm really gratified. I loved the experience. I loved making it, and I hope to make content in the future that people enjoy. And seriously, I do. I know it's shameless to plug my next venture, but I hope to
Go,
share with you
plug
guys
away, man.
soon about Ascendant Games and what we're making. We're taking a lot of the team is made of a bunch of ex Sledgehammer guys, a bunch of ex Telltale guys, and other people from the industry, other just incredible developers from the industry. So we hope to share with you guys something soon about some really cool stuff we're making. Hopefully you guys will like it.
Can't wait to see it.
Hey guys, I've got a buzz. I got to take off. But as always, Rizzo, great fun chatting with you. And Warnke, we should touch base one of these days. I'm gonna be up in San Francisco in another 2 weeks. We should hang out.
Awesome. Yeah, we absolutely should.
And with that, our chat ends here. I really hope you enjoyed this little look back on World War II zombies. And again, massive thanks to Cameron and Jason for joining me on this video. I've been trying to get this kind of video greenlit for over 18 months. All it took was both of them leaving Activision. Who knew?
Before I head out though, for those curious, here's a quick update on my upcoming content. First up is a new Leftovers video, or 2. Next, the long requested Buried review. I've been putting this one off for far too long. After that, I'll resume work on my Shadow Throne music video, because while it is further along than the Buried review, I figured we've been doing too much World War II at once, so we'll take a little break, do some Black Ops stuff, and then we'll go back to World War II. And lastly, per the countless fan requests I've had over the years, a detailed tutorial on how I make my thumbnail renders. I know that's not going to be for everyone, but for those who were asking for that, hopefully I'll be able to help you out a little bit on that one, because I always love seeing people express the creative side about the things they love. But what comes after that? I honestly couldn't tell ya. My hope is that Modern Warfare is great, so I can make content on that game, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Gunfight is pretty goddamn good though, so I think we're in safe hands. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Take care, everyone.